Hey guys, welcome back to my channel today. In today's video, we're going to be doing a review on the new Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit Universe palette. This is the Holiday 2021 ambient lighting edit that they have come out with for this year. There's also another palette and a new ambient lighting palette trio that will be coming out later on. So if you are wanting reviews on those will be coming as soon as they arrive. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to know the reviews on those palettes coming up. But today we're going to be talking about this one, and this one was on early access release from Sephora, which is how I got it. So let's get right on into inside the palette, all of my thoughts, and whether or not I think it is worth the crazy high-end price tag. Let's dive right on into the outer packaging, which is the same year over year. I find Hourglass has a very distinct bronze reflective packaging, just cardboard on the outside to protect the palettes. And this is no different whatsoever. So this is the outer cardboard packaging that the palette is housed in. Now, when I took it out of the packaging, it surprised me right away because of the material of this one. So this is the new one here. We have the Ambient Lighting Edit Universe palette. Just for comparison's sake, I'm going to pull up the Sculpture palette from last year. So this is a lightweight plastic packaging, I would say, with kind of like, you know, that reflective metallic look. This one is tin. You can see it's kind of like brushed tin. This is similar to actually the eyeshadow palettes. If you guys are familiar with that material, the outer packaging of the customizable eyeshadow, it makes it actually a little bit heavier than previous releases because of the material there. So you can see just the difference with that. I do love the marble cover packaging here. It's kind of like a gold with some rose elements. It is so beautiful, and I actually can't wait to see the other palettes too, because there's another one coming out that is the unlocked version of Holiday 2021. So once again, I will be reviewing that one when it arrives. This one will run you 80 American dollars or 110 Canadian dollars, which is why I like to review these for you to just let you know if it's actually worth the splurge. So let's dive into inside the palette, which is structured very differently as well this year. When you open it up, you do see it's actually kind of like heavier, like I said, because of the tin. But you can see here that there are actually only 5 shades in this particular palette this year versus Sculpture, which had 6. They have done this format before in previous palettes on this side of my hand here with the one big powder on the left side, but it wasn't for a number of years now. So it has been mostly the 6-pan. I'm going to actually try to one-hand open this for you so you can see what I'm talking about. 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom, whereas this is 5. 1 large one and 4 on the right side of this Universe palette. From last year, Sculpture included the 2 shades that are in all of these palettes year over year, which is Dim Light and Diffuse Light. They are finishing powders from Hourglass right here. As soon as I saw those, I'm like, yep, that's a holiday palette from Hourglass. Those 2 spots are always those 2 powders. So it's kind of funny because a lot of us have those in our collection already. So when you add this palette too, it starts to kind of be a little bit of a question mark as to whether or not it's worth the splurge, because if you have 2 powders already, you have 2 out of the 6 shades. So you have a third of it already if you already have those finishing powders. Universe doesn't have Dim Light and Diffuse Light. It actually has this powder here, which is their new Infinity powder. They released it this past year. Totally transparent. It was not a powder that worked out for me personally, which when I saw this, I was like, dang it. It is the Ambient Infinity powder, which I do not like. If you are unfamiliar, the Infinity powder is a combination of dim light, diffuse light, and the hypnotic strobe light powder all together. So this is a finishing powder with a little bit of a shimmer. And I always found that my favorite Hourglass finishing powders don't have that shimmer to them. They have light reflecting particles instead. They don't have a shimmer, so that's not like a highlight. It's just meant to bring light to certain parts of the face. So when I was working with the Infinity powder, when I was testing it, when it was first released by itself, I noticed that I had a hard time justifying getting one pan of it when I'd really just use it for a very subtle highlight because it does have that shimmer. But just so you guys know, I personally don't like it. I would rather get a finishing powder by itself that doesn't have the shimmer so I can use it for under the eye or just like tip of the nose, a little bit on the forehead where I want to bring some light. The shimmer makes it sort of confusing to me, and I just use it then for a subtle highlight. So that's what I'm going to use this for because now I have it in this palette. These are all new. So this, like I said, the Infinity Powder, which you can buy separately. This is 2 blushes. We have one that is a strobe blush, one that's a regular blush. We have a bronzer, and we also have a strobe highlight. The strobe blush powder is actually this one. This is called Vibrant Heat, and kind of how they differentiate, like I said, strobe has more of a shimmer, an actual fine shimmer presence, versus a luminous blush by itself is more that light reflecting particles, a little bit more subtle when it comes to shimmer. The other one here is called Luminous Rose. It is just a regular luminous ambient lighting blush. The bronzer up here is called Glistening Bronze Light. It is new as well. It is the ambient lighting formula. And then we have this guy here, which is the Strobe Highlight. This is the shade Supernatural Strobe Light. It is a champagne color. So you can see me using all of these today on my skin. Very, very easy. The Infinity Powder is the one I'm going to be using for a subtle highlight. I will put the Strobe Highlight over top of that. So I'm going to have quite a bit of highlight today, which is totally fine for this video testing purposes. But normally I would pick one or the other, I think, because the Infinity Powder to me has enough shimmer for it to be more of a very natural highlight versus an all-over powder use. Then I went over with the Strobe Highlight. So the Strobe Highlight added a little bit more yet to the highlight look on my face today. So like I said earlier, the Strobe Light powders do have a little bit more of that shimmer. It's not chunky shimmer. It's not blatant, like tacky shimmer. It really is that nice fine melt into the skin shimmer, but it is significant when you see it on swatch and when you see it on the skin. It's definitely shimmer versus light particles, a little bit different. Next I went in with the bronzer. This is a golden bronze color. It picks up on the brush very quick, just like all the other Hourglass products. So just keep in mind, if you are using dense brushes like I am, you got to be a little bit light-handed, but if you are a little bit more with the fluffier brushes, you can afford to go a little bit heavier because the bristles aren't so packed tight on your brush, right? So the bronzer applied beautifully, blended beautifully, very similar to the other bronzers from Hourglass in the ambient lighting formula. It's so user-friendly and so easy to use. Then I just loaded up on blush because why not? So the first blush I used was the Strobe blush. Like I said, has a bit of a shimmer presence to it. Again, picks up on the brush quickly, so just be careful with that, but it is one that blends beautifully. You don't have to worry. If you do put too much, you can blend it into the skin a little bit. It offers a little bit of that versatility there, but it's not a magic wand. If you go too much, you will eventually look a little bit too heavy with the cheeks, but it does offer a little bit of that blendability there, so if you do make a mistake, not to worry, it will help you diffuse it into the skin a little bit more there for you. I then just added that Soft Plum blush, which is the ambient lighting blush in Luminous Rose today. So, so gorgeous, and now I have quite a bit of blush on my cheeks, which is totally fine for this, but normally I would actually just pick one or the other, of course. I wanted to test them both today to see if they'd both perform. They absolutely do. Layered on top of each other, they look really stunning as well. If you want to just lightly tap here and lightly tap there, you absolutely can. Now going to the Sculpture palette, there isn't really anything that I would say is the same when it comes to Sculpture. So if you do have Sculpture from last year and you're kind of wondering like which of these powders is similar to Sculpture, is it worth picking up because I already have last year's Sculpture? The reality is these formulations are quite different than Sculpture. Like Sculpture has the dim light, diffuse light. It also has a strobe powder in Glistening Strobe. So I'm going to actually swatch them and see how different they are. They do look different. The strobe light from Sculpture looks a little different, looks deeper, but let's take a look. The two blushes are different too. So Sculpture also had a strobe blush and then also had a luminous blush, like a regular ambient lighting formula. So let's just see. Sculpture did have Mood Exposure blush, which is actually a soft plummy mauve as well. And this one was actually from the permanent collection. You can actually get Mood Exposure by itself. I'm going to actually swatch the plum from Universe. You can see they are very, very different. So you can see here Mood Exposure is on the right and we have the rose from Universe on the left. So you can see significantly more pinker purple. Mood Exposure is lighter and also more purple than pink, I would say. So here we have both of the highlights. The one on the left is from Universe. The one on the right is from Sculpture. They're a little more close compared to the blushes I just swatched. I would say Sculpture is a tad pinker than the highlight from Universe this year. So I think hopefully my camera's picking that up. They are definitely closer. I don't think you'd be able to see a difference on the cheek between the two of them because these are obviously heavy swatches. Definitely closer, but certainly not duplicates. These are the two highlights from Sculpture versus Universe. Now here we have the bronzers. So the bronzer on the left is from Universe this year. The bronzer on the right is from Sculpture. So Sculpture's bronzer is definitely a little bit deeper. You can see has more of a red undertone as well, whereas the bronzer on my left here is a little bit lighter. Not as red tone, still red tone for sure, but just not as deep as the Sculpture one from last year. So overall, you can see that the only real, I would say, close shade between them are the highlights. The other ones are still different, and I do like that we don't have any shades from the permanent collection except for the Infinity Powder. So this one does offer 4 out of the 5 brand new exclusive shades, which I do appreciate. And then we do have the Infinity Powder there, which, like I said, if you have any way of using this like the best way possible, do let me know. Hourglass sort of tells you to use it how you want. So for me, it will be a subtle highlight for now because all over it's just a little bit too much glitter, but perhaps I am using it wrong as well. So do let me know that. But all in all, I will say I am very intrigued for the next palette to come, which is the Unlocked palette. I will definitely compare it to this one and let you guys know. I will also do the Ambient Trio, which I'm very excited about because it's a deeper version of the Trio, which I'm super excited, and I'll be doing comparison between that one and number 1 and number 2 as well. So stay tuned for all of that. Here are the swatches of this palette. Hopefully this helped you out in deciding whether or not this was worth purchasing for you or not. I personally am super thrilled with the quality of this. I do think it's absolutely there. I think it's interesting how they changed the packaging up. They don't mention why they've changed their packaging to this tin, but it's definitely an interesting change. It certainly feels a little bit heavier in the hand, and I can't get over the outer packaging of this. I just think it's so stunning. So good job to Hourglass for that because wowza, it's beautiful. Stay tuned for the other reviews of the future palettes coming from Holiday 2021. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications if you are interested in those reviews because they'll be coming up as soon as possible. And until my next one, guys, take care and stay safe. Bye, guys.